Alright, welcome back to UrbanX TV. We have a extremely special a very special guest here with us today. It's an honor that he's here with me and, with you guys. Before we start, I want to let everybody know to remember to subscribe and to hit the bell button so you get an update. And subscribe to the blog as well, UrbanX.NYC. But forget all that. We're here with Dr. Phil Valentine. Thank you very much for being here.
Malcolm, my pleasure. Seeing this boy grow up from this high.
Yes.
Great. Gonna be a great man.
Thank you.
All right. Support this little brother.
Appreciate that. So growing up, with my father, he always has a different insight on a lot of things that's going on. So when events happen, I kind of have, my immediate reaction. He tells me, relax. So my first thought is Trump, right? So when that happened, I had an immediate emotional response to it. What was your immediate, when you saw that happen, what did you think immediately after?
Well, knowing the backstory, first of all, I just want to let you know that your father also is a great man, and he's been there from the beginning.
Right.
He's been moving the energy, the kind of consciousness, the real conscious community. He's been a beacon in that community for a very long time. And I just want to make sure that these young people understand that you had serious foundation coming up. So the fruit don't fall too far, like they say. So when Trump came into office, I knew it was something that was planned. We understood what that was about. It was essentially you have to remember, we have nothing to do with Republican or Democrat. There's no such thing. There are only corporations that mask themselves as countries. And so what he now became was the CEO of a corporation called the United States. So no matter who they put there, the people who pull the strings and flip the switches on those corporations were the ones that dealt with it. So when I looked at his backstory, I knew, of course, where his father came from. But most people didn't know that at the time, whenever you see their factions within the so-called ruling elite, there's always one secret society fighting one another secret society. So right before Trump became president, I put it out there on Facebook that he had gone to Scotland and traveled Ireland and Scotland, where his roots came from. And he was given the monies and the next step from the CFR and of course all the rest of them. But he was a part of what was called the Lodge of Solomon. So he's one of the original Masonic lodges. And once he went there, they said they were going to back him. You'll be the next president of the United States. So everybody kind of braced themselves for that. It didn't matter to me who was president because I knew what the game was. But when Trump became president, essentially it was about ending a specific hierarchy who was in charge. A new hierarchy came in, but it was the same work. See, what they do is they have to make sure that you don't get used to or figure out one leadership so that you can countermeasure. They switch you over to a whole other, but it's the same puppeteer playing the same strings. So the thing that I was more concerned about was even putting in Hillary, because Hillary is gangster. She's straight up gangster, but she smiles and she's, what do you call it, but no. She's straight up gangster, she got bodies, she got everything. So putting her in would have been pretty much the same thing, but we would have been already at war with somebody. So we are either to choose the apple or the orange, but then both came from a tainted tree. The problem is that we are not prepared to do any counterattack or countermeasures. We're not prepared. So they're moving along, and I would tell everybody by the year 2020, we'll get into year 2020 to year 2025 and then 2050. These are the pivotal points that you're going to see the New World Order finally step out into the light. And when they do, they'll have shown everything. But are we prepared to take the next step to counter that? We're not.
So the Trump saying dumb things, misreading words, this is all an act?
It's all part of the plot to undermine the United States as a superpower. You have an idiot or somebody who is a buffoon.
Right.
And you have to also remember, too, that the media, who didn't want him in there from the other faction of the secret societies, the media, who didn't want him in there, are countering everything he does. So whenever he comes at something, because they don't like him and they don't want to deal with him, they'll come back at him, against him. So the media, who was actually siding with Hillary, don't want him in there. So everything you're going to get is going to be the worst of Trump. What is Trump doing? Everything that's supposed to be in line with what the next step for the so-called New World Order is. How is that going to be countered? It's going to be countered by the people. Are the people going to wake up and know that Black Lives Matter, the New World Order, all the rest of these are all linked? Hopefully one day you'll begin to understand that there are no factions. There are only corporations who are pulling the strings, who are setting us up for a genocidal move towards cropping the populations of the planet and removing a certain amount of useless eaters and useless breeders. Now, this sounds like conspiracy theory. You better understand that as we move towards transhumanism, from the time what they call the construction, the new constructive era, when they started dealing with more technologies after World War I and World War II, they needed bodies to mine the fields in the slaves so they could pick cotton, make sugar, and to pick sugar and sugar cane. When they began to mechanize, they needed less bodies. Now that they've become computerized, they need less people to do the same thing, to control and to rule. So they have to get rid of all the people that they allowed to be born, who they had nothing, they had no future to actually allow them to be in. So now that they have this surplus of people, you got to create wars and stuff so we can start cropping the population. The people they're sending over there to the Middle East and so, they don't want them coming back. You have to understand that. These people are cannon fodder. They'll come back. The ones that come back, you're supposed to salute and to fly and all that. No, there's no country. There's no flag. There's no anthem. These are for the people who are what we call the sheeple, or the thousand-headed ass. They need a rallying cry because the elite need to know that the people under them are under some form of control. If they're fighting one another, they don't look at the elite who's creating the conditions, and they don't fight at them.
So, most recently we had the Vegas shooting, and that was probably one of the first few instances when something happened, and I immediately was like, all right, that does not make sense. And my father, I didn't even have to speak to him for that not to make sense to me. Like, so, there's a lot of things going on now. There's multiple shooters, which I think if anybody was to just step back from, the story didn't make sense regardless.
Indeed.
So how did you?
Sleeper cells. Sleeper cells. You have to understand that this is a plan 70 years in the past. These people who are in control, they guide human nature to what they want human nature to be. And they have the plans and the resources in place to make sure that the paradigm that they're creating for you to believe in has the support, so that the commercials, the movies, the television shows, they all dovetail into the plan itself. You're being orchestrated, like they said in the Matrix, you're being orchestrated. So what we're looking at, essentially, is what we teach in our school. We call it synthetic synchronicity. What is synthetic synchronicity? If I set up a pattern of behavior and I have a goal, problem, reaction, solution. If I have a goal to achieve, then I know I need to make sure that there are certain things in place so that those who are to be the cattle that move along a specific pattern to end up at that goal must see certain things in place to reassure them that that goal is something that they should believe in. What happens? So we start seeing we can't field nations onto the battlefield to fight one another anymore. Now we have to fight in little skirmishes. We can't actually field an army to come against the United States of America, but we can seed cells that wage war on the people and I wake that cell up, and I now gain more credibility when I say we need more military. We need more military. We need to militarize the police a little bit more. Why? Look at that terrorist attack. Look what just happened on the West Side Highway. We need more police. We need more guns. We need more sophisticated weaponry. All the while, these sleepers are there to not only terrorize the American public, but to cripple them in their ability to respond to the right enemy.
Okay.
You see? Because we're not responding to the right enemy. These fabricated terrorists are essentially nothing more than useless idiots, we call them. We call them the useless idiots that they field into the means of battle, and then what happens? Everybody says, look, that lone person, he's Islamic and he's this, and he's great to Allah, and this. No.
ISIS.
Yeah, ISIS, yeah, we all know who's created ISIS. The CIA created ISIS. So, understand. Now, there are no real terrorists. The real terrorists are the government. In fact, government means the mental coordination of people. Okay, governmental, the same way that you deal with, say, a big family, you have to govern. There's one person that says, this is what you do until you're able to do yourself. Government does not allow you to come out of the childhood bracket. They must keep you in a state of arrested development. To do that, they must keep you fearful. So you must be constantly fearful of something to give them a legitimate place in your reality. So what happens? We'll park a few planes into the Twin Towers. They weren't really planes, they were actually missiles. And they weren't actually missiles, they were actually bombs that were already stationed in there. And your father would tell you, about 2 months after the actual so-called 9/11, I spoke and told him it was a demolition. Before any of these other Europeans were coming out saying, I said, look, it's a demolition. Why? Because I looked at the Spanish stations. The other stations, CBS, NBC, were editing as they went along. Mm-hmm. The live pictures, they were editing and trying to get it back out because all the lies began coming out later. But the Spanish stations were showing you as it happened. And what we saw was these charges going off the sides, bringing down the building. And we were right there. I mean, it wasn't the best picture. We saw it with the grainy, but we saw it. Okay? So everything that the human psyche is being orchestrated to believe and to be able to react to is orchestrated. Just imagine somebody who's a playwright writing a movie. Mm-hmm. Well, somebody is doing that. It was called, I think it was Zbigniew Brzezinski, a blueprint for a new America, or blueprint for a new United States, or something like that. Those of you out there know what I'm talking about. They already planned 70 years ago to 100 years ago exactly where we would be going, technologically, socially, educationally, and everything else. And because we're becoming so much more sophisticated, people who had money, the billions, would want to go ahead up into outer space and all these different places. And as soon as your boy, who was the head of Virgin Airlines, said, I'm building a ship so that we can go into outer space, what happened? They shut him down. Mm-hmm. Remember the Concorde? Oh, you're too young for the Concorde. You're too young for the Concorde. Used to fly into outer space, right? What did they find out? There was no curve to the earth. What did they find out? They can go but so high, the dome would cut them off. So they began to say, okay, we have to get rid of this. We have to cause it to crash. And say, well, we found a problem with the Concorde. Well, if you found a problem with one of the planes, why would you stop the entire service? Okay, nobody even thought about that. The reason for that is too many people looking out of that little hole, because the holes of the Concorde is about that big, were seeing that the thing was straight across. There was no curve. Because if you're flying in outer space, you're not supposed to see anything. In fact, if you're flying on a curved Earth, and you're flying this way, if you don't follow the curved Earth, you'll be flying off into outer space, wouldn't you?
Right.
You don't ask the pilot, are you constantly adjusting to go down? No, you're not. You're flying straight.
Okay, that leads into my next question. Actually, so there's a rapper named B.O.B.
Who's that? I don't know.
Rapper, his name is B.O.B. and he is a self-proclaimed flat earther. Right?
Oh, okay, flat earther. Okay.
So I wanted to know more about, because I don't know too much about that argument. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And this is good because we spoke about this back in the '90s, and of course that was not something that we wanted to speak about because your father knew somebody who was by the name of what was his name? It was two Europeans. One was part of the Philadelphia experiment, and his name was Al Bielek.
Al Bielek.
Al Bielek and Preston Nichols. When I was at one of the Gathering of the Masters, you were still a baby. We spoke behind the scenes about that. What's about this flat Earth? Because I was reading someone who's very profound information. Matter of fact, I always carry his book around. You should see one of his books up there. See the book up there?
Worlds Beyond Poles.
Worlds Beyond the Poles. You got to see that book. That book became the catechism for a while. But when I told him I got the old manuscript on it, they said, don't talk about that. They said because the people who are the astronomers were dying, were being like suicided. He just shot himself in the head because of what they were finding. Supposedly, the guy that you see that is in the wheelchair, what's his name? That's a super Hawkins. He wasn't like that. They caused it because of what he found, and that's not him speaking. That's somebody else speaking through a microphone because he can't speak. So that's you're watching orchestration. It's all game. But as far as flat Earth, we never taught flat Earth. It's a flat plane. It doesn't end. There is no end to it. There are different areas of habitation, but in our specific envelope, we are in what we call a kind of a Merkaba field. And it's not glass, it's made of what I, at the time, back in those days, said was compressed hydrogen. Now, how do you compress hydrogen? There's no way to compress something that's the first element. Well, they just did it. Now that they did it, everybody's saying, well, yo, Dr. Valentine, I remember you said that the dome was made of compressed hydrogen, and that it was mind-blowing. But now, a little Indian boy, along with a European scientist, actually got hydrogen to a particular way. I don't know how it does it scientifically, so now it's reflecting. You could never get a reflective surface from a hydrogen molecule, but now it's reflecting. So now we're beginning to see that everything being water in different densities, your air is water, it's just that you're created for a different type of water environment. Oxygen is water, and so is water. So fish breathe there, you breathe here.
Right.
So being on a flat plane, everything essentially above as below, there are entities in second and third and fourth and fifth dimensions that are directly above us on their own flat plane looking up at us and you looking up at them. It's like a deep situation, and don't even try to, what do you call it, but I can't speak on it because that's what we teach, so I won't give too much away. But I let you know that it's a plane. It's not an earth, a flat earth. All of it is a plane. It's the infinite plane actually giving a reflection to the eternal mind, God. See, the God being eternal cannot create anything other than itself. So it doesn't create in little spots. It creates in accordance with its own infinitude, with its own nature of infinity and eternity. So you cannot just say, build here, and ain't nothing but space. No. Everything is the mind of the Creator. And as the mind of the Creator, it is infinite. Just like you. You are eternal. You are infinite. There was never a time that you were not. There is no beginning. You didn't come out of a sludge. You weren't slime. You didn't turn into a monkey. And you didn't become man. You were always this template. But you were nothing more than a spark. That spark takes on certain types of veneers where it's needed. There's a spark that calls itself a porpoise. There's a spark that today in third density calls itself a whale. There's a spark that calls itself an orangutan. But we are each different sparks with an expression to take on in accordance with the consciousness that the spark contains. And that's what you are. You are now part of the human HUE experiment. And this spark essentially always was. So how could something that is eternal and infinite create something terminal? It is not. You are not terminal. This is. Just like you would want to go down, say, if I want to go down the bottom of the ocean. If I want to go down the bottom of the ocean, I can't just jump in and just keep going. What would happen after I get to about 30, 40 feet? Pressure and die.
Yeah.
All right, so what do? You put on a proper suit for that. Well, this is your proper suit for third density. Okay?
Right.
So now you're here, as they all say, you are not physical having a spiritual experience, you're a spirit having a physical experience. But they want you to believe that this is all you are. And they can't come out of that, and that's the beauty of this. They can't come out of this. They don't know how to get past this from here. So what are they doing? They're trying to trap you in here further. So now you're going from human to transgender, and next transhuman. So now instead of you using not only your melanin and your mindset and your consciousness to transcend and to change the mind of your cells, to change the mind of the microbes, to change the mind of your molecules, to change the mind of your atomic structure through the mind, they'll do it for you. They'll just add it on. So every movie you see, somebody's got this sophisticated Iron Man is coming on with this. The Black Panther got these things that come on to make him... No. All of what they do on the outside, you should be doing on the inside. But they shut down the ability for you to ascend and transcend this technology, because the technology to be God's is locked up in your cells. Okay? And that's why they're in there digging, mining inside of your cells to twist it and turn it and say, no, we're not going to put this God in this. No. They say you only have 6 to 9 helixes. You, black man, have 22. They only can actually deal with the 6 and the 9. But you have 22, and that's what they call the junk DNA.
Okay, I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that.
Right. Mm-hmm. So instead of them saying, well, you're going to have the 12-strand DNA that transcends you to be a god, no. You have 22 at this time that are now discordant, they call it. Only 6 and 9 are working because there's a long story to that, for that to happen. But just, if you want to know about the 22 strands of your DNA, study Kabbalah.
That was in my library that my father has bestowed upon me.
Good.
So, right now in America, I've noticed a change in a lot that's been here. You know what I mean? Like, football has always been.
Right.
The Hollywood ruling class has always been, but I feel like there's a real, like you said, like a paradigm shift.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, my theory is I don't think football will be here in 20 years.
Mm-hmm. No.
It'll
be something else.
Yeah, I don't think it would be here. And the whole Harvey Weinstein thing, I feel like it's weird because when that stuff started coming out, I thought it was weird automatic. I'm like, they're letting this happen to a white dude, like all of this Jewish guy, that you know what I mean? So I want to know what was your thoughts?
Well, like I said, what it is all paradigms shift in accordance with the scientific mindset.
Okay.
Because science shifts paradigms. Whatever it is they believe, they build and they create is what they want the mindset of the population to follow.
Okay.
So the ruling class wants a specific paradigm in place so that their rule is unquestioned. So it's necessary for them to tinker with the biology that they want to rule. If they want to rule an automaton, they must change the automaton's instinct for individuality. And to do that, they have to get into where you know that individuality because you personify yourself as one of the genders. This is very, very important to understand, and this is for the young people. Do not believe the hype that there are 120 genders. There's no such animal. That is the confusion. Know this. Your father knows this too. The Illuminati is not, this is the phony Illuminati. The ones that came and took over the Masonry through Adam Weishaupt and Cardinal Rishi. That phony play on words and those games that they've been playing, know that there is and I want to make sure that the brothers and sisters understand this. There has to be a function and a structure in place if you want to move someone from one place to the next. Know that. You have to have that in place so that when they come, it's familiar. I see it. It looks right. And now I can tell you that I'm shifting into another paradigm because the mindset that they want me to know, to tell you, they shut it off in my head right now. They just attacked my head and shut down what I was about to say. But I'm not going to allow that because I'm going to keep speaking and I'm going to keep telling you that the paradigm, I'm going to go back where I am, and this is what you're going to have to learn to do. You're going to have to learn to rewind to find out which one of the paradigms that they don't want you to function in. Okay, so we rewind to the point where we say science shifts paradigms. See, we're back where we are? No, they're not going to play with my head. Okay, science shifts paradigms. And so what happens, they have to tinker with the machinery in order for that machine to do what it wants to do, what they want the machine to do. At this point where we are, we've developed a mindset where we can change the mind of the cell. And doing that is a war. That's where the war is. To change the mind of the cell so that the cell stays independent and it has its own thought process. So now, gender is the instinct. See, that's what they didn't want me to tell you. There is no 100 genders. There'll be a $100 billion to convince you that, but there's no 100 genders. This is what I wanted to tell you about your father. Ordo ab chao. Remember those 3 words, or 4 words as it translates. Ordo ab chao, or chao, or chao. Order out of chaos. The reason why they want to create 10,000 genders is because the original gender is your original connection to your divine instincts. When you undermine the instincts of a human, then he wants to have sex with animals. Right. When you undermine the instinct of a man, he wants to be a woman. You undermine the instincts of a woman, he wants to be a man. She wants to be a man. Why? Because your instincts are in your cells. Your cells carry the instincts based upon your higher mind, which is your pineal, working in conjunction with your pituitary in order to give orders to the structure and the design that you are. You are a male, I am a male, your father is a male, therefore we are wired differently for a purpose. Mess with the wiring, mess with the signals necessary to be carried in that wiring, and you can change that person into thinking that that man is a woman. So what they've been doing is they've been putting into the foods, into the chemicals, the foods, the water. Soy. Yes, all kinds of foods that are going to cause you to convince you that somehow, me as a 67-year-old man, that somehow now I have this feeling that I'm becoming a woman. I feel like I need to have breasts and I need to wear a dress. That is not natural. There is something about males that naturally is an aversion. We are the ones that say, no, that don't belong there. We'll fight it out, we'll kill it out to make sure. That's what the lion does. The lion has a particular pride, and he has about 6 or 7 females. They run the whole crow. But he circles the entire place where they are to make sure nobody else, either his competition, comes in. That's a male instinct. It is about forwarding the species. If you take away the male's instinct to want to forward the species, what do you have? Nothing. You have a drone, and that's what they want to do, create drones. So the attack on gender is the attack on your instincts. When you undermine the instincts, which are forwarded in the chemistry of the cells, instinct is a chemical process, and you can undermine instinct by undermining the chemistry of a man and undermining the chemistry of a woman, because the chemistry of the man, the chemistry of the woman, is the mentality of the man and the mentality of the woman. Okay? Right. How your blood works, how your chemistry works, tells me how you will behave. Okay?
Right. So like, with that understanding, why do you think it's more of a direct war on the black male more than anybody?
Because we are the original, and I would say more you so, because I'm a little watered down, as you see, but they didn't water this down.
Right.
Okay? But what happens is the original male and the original female, we hold on to the key to the escape. We have the escape plan. encoded in melanin. See, melanin is not a color. Let's get that. It's not a pigment. You see, melanin, for me, is an intelligence. It is the expressed intelligence of the hydrogen atom. If Creator wanted to create itself, it created itself as the one, because the one only creates one of itself. That's how it creates. It is the oneness. The two polarities that are inherent within Creator comes out into the one, and then the one expresses everything else. So when Dr. Gabriel Oyibo spoke about the hydrogen atom, or the hydrogen atom itself being the only true atom that everything else is expressed from, if you look on the periodic table, that means that everything comes out of that hydrogen atom. Then if it then dovetails into becoming carbon and silicon, which we were originally,
Right.
our silicon matrix was taken from us. Now we're only carbon. And once you put carbon into oxygen, into water, what happens? It rusts. It dies out. It's the most unstable if it does not have the stabilizing factor which has been taken out of us. But you still retain that strong connection to the hydrogen molecule, the hydrogen atom. And hydrogen atom is the one. That is the part that puts us directly into and definitely in line with, consciousness-wise, with the Creator. So this covering here is an intelligence. It is psychoreactive. You can see it working in some of our brothers and sisters who are in Africa. If you go over to Africa, to Senegal, there are some brothers there that are so black that if you were to put some water on them and then shine a light, you'd see a light coming out of them, like the green or blue shine off of them. You ever seen somebody so? Yeah, that's what I call prismatic melanin in my book. The new book that I'm going to have coming out, which is going to be about that thick, which has taken me so long to do, it's called Cosmic Codex.
Okay.
And Cosmic Codex talks about prismatic melanin. You can always tell the emotions or the feelings of someone because they change the color. The energy changes the color on their skin. You can tell that because all the chakras are in you, all of the different colors. So prismatic melanin would then be the direct uplink to the Creator, because black absorbs light,
Right.
and light is an information carrier. Come on now, you know what I'm saying, right? So you were and had the direct connection directly to the Creator. You didn't have to go through any kind of languaging system until we fell. See, the fall was the disconnect between the Creator and you, because the genetics were undermined for a purpose, to make sure that you could be ruled and controlled, you see. So what I'm saying is that as humans, or Humans, and I know that I'm going to probably offend some of your white listeners and your more tan sisters, look at this guy, he's all light skinned, he's talking like he's dark. Yeah, but you should see my family. They look like them. You know, I just, come in there, and we got a few of them. And you ain't never seen nobody light skinned that's black, Yeah, good. Hopefully you know that. But know that the original peoples, and I say the original people of this plane, were all very, very, very charcoal black with a hue. That's where the hue came in. Hue, man, which is a color that was vibrant on us. And we didn't live out in no deserts. We didn't live out there where it's sand and, and what do you call it? They were actually gigantic, beautiful trees, beautiful things, just like the Navi that you saw in
Avatar.
In Avatar? Mm-hmm. Well, when you saw the tape when the brother accosted the director, Cameron, he said, "Why don't you ever have black folks in your movies?" He said, "Well, yeah, my black folks are blue."
Facts.
He was telling you. The tree of life was essentially something in the center, what we call the North Pole. That's where the gigantic silicon tree was. They took out the silicon because the silicon allowed you to live the length of Methuselah, 900 years, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, because essentially it was more stable in the environment that we're in.
Wow.
Carbon is not stable in this environment. Carbon rusts, carbon undermines. If you were to breathe in oxygen and you only had a carbon matrix, You breathe in oxygen and you try running, what happens? You get oxidative stress. Oxygen becomes toxic to you. Why?
Right.
Why is oxygen toxic and we need to breathe it?
Right.
Because that's the secret. This is how we have been trapped. This is how they have kept us a prisoner. This is a prison planet, they're true. But consciousness-wise.
So, okay. So, you spoke on, like, health and food, or what is your stance? Because right now, I see it's a lot of people that are going vegan because of, they watch documentaries now.
Yeah.
So, what is your stance on that?
Well, I've been, vegetarian for a long time, but I just overdo on my vegetarianism. You know what I'm saying? I love my vegetables and my starches and stuff, but I have never been sick. I haven't been sick in 30 years.
Wow.
So I'm saying, I may not look like, Usain Bolt or, a boy playing Black Panther and stuff, but I know what to do to reverse whatever it is I'm doing. I say that veganism is good, but if you're eating foods that do not have the proper content of nutrition, then it doesn't make any sense. Why? Because they overwash your foods, number one. Number two, they pick it too soon. If they pick your fruits or your vegetables too soon, it means that you do not have the, the necessary ingredients in broccoli and lettuce and whatever it is. Because right at the ripening stage, there is a rush of at least 70% of nutrients into the plant or the fruit at the ripening stage. But they pick it before it ripes.
Because of mass.
Right, and they have to ship it from other countries. And so when it's ripened on the shelf, even though it says organic, that's why, and this is a plug for the wife, we deal with concentrated nutrition and the Juice Plus product.
Okay.
That Juice Plus has something like 25 to 30 fruits, vegetables, and berries that are grown in mom and pop farms, organic, and has a process called NSF, which is the National Safety Foundation, and they have a higher categorization for food than even the organic labeling that is done by the Food and Drugs Administration. Right. So they make sure that not only just the soil, because the Food and Drug Administration only wants to know that the soil is prepared. What happens, what you put in there, what grows to sprout, what grows into a full mature, what grows into the fruit, they don't care. So what the NSF does and what Juice Plus does is make sure that every step, from the time the soil to the seed to the sprout to the growth of the plant or the fruit, and right into the ripening stage, and picked right when it's ripe. And then if there's one thing they find wrong, they throw out that entire batch.
Wow.
And start over again. This is the only reason I would, because I'm not a product pusher. Your father knows I'm not a product pusher. What I found, however, was the dude who actually put together the formula was one of my old herbal teachers, Humberto Santillo. And an old good friend of ours called, he knows, your father knows, John Harris, who was one of the first people to really push forward the in the black community, to push forward the health fairs and the so-called conscious fairs. He was one of the pioneers in doing that. And he and I took a classes for certification from Humberto Santillo. He created a formula to save his father's life.
Wow.
This formula became the Juice Plus formula. And what happened is his father had esophageal cancer. Okay? They said, take him home to die, he'll be dead in a month. Not to him. Now, because he couldn't eat, he put together formulas and fed his father directly into his large colon, through the rectum. Where he was supposed to die in a month, he lived something like 3 to 5 years after that. Why? Because inside of here, there's a brain. Not only here, there's another brain. And this is where your autism is. This is where all of your diseases are, right here. Once you change the flora and put in the proper nutrition, you'll be surprised how the body reacts immediately. And this is what you have to do. And now, like I said, I can't get rid of this because I'm too lazy. But what's inside behind this, when I know that I get up and do what I have to do, after I get in my stride, it's like it's not there. The thing is, I'm not making excuses. Don't look like this, please, okay? I'm gonna have to catch up with you young people. Y'all looking all good and what? I'll catch up soon, but I'm too damn busy sitting behind a computer. No excuses though. What I will tell you is that concentrated nutrition is going to be vital over the next 10 to 15 years. You have to teach the brothers and sisters about Juice Plus. Why? Not because we want to start making money on it. That's not what it is. It's something that we say there at the Juice Plus company. People don't want to know. People, let me get it right now so I don't mess it up. People don't care what you know until they know that you care. Okay? Why? Because we don't approach it as a business. This is about promoting health. And all of the research, 32 out of 28 out of 32 is gold standard. If you have one medical research done on your product, you can blow that up. Medical research done. Juice Plus has 34. Okay, and they are said there are only two countries. There are two countries that don't allow level marketing in there. Australia was one. There's only two products that are allowed in Australia: Juice Plus and another product. That's because the country says no. And there are 4 countries or 5 countries that only give Juice Plus to their athletes, their Olympic athletes. Only that. Okay? So what I'm saying is, not as a promotional pit, I don't care whether you take it or not. I know what I'm benefiting from it. I know what my family's benefiting from it. But I tell you and the young people that you're servicing, Juice Plus is what they need, because the fruits and vegetables they're eating are deprived. They're either genetically engineered, they're either picked too soon and therefore don't contain the concentrated nutrition, which is why they predicted that you and your generation is the only generation that will not outlive your fathers and your mothers.
Wow.
Okay? Why? Because we are not eating the way the grandfather and the broccoli back then, 2 and 5 and 10 generations, ain't the broccoli today. Which is why so much of a concentration of it is necessary to make up what it is that they were feeding on back then.
Wow.